Hello and welcome to the Crafty Pint podcast. I'm Will.
I'm James, and yes, welcome back. Have you been, Will?
Very well, very well. We've been together a lot recently because we're recording a lot of podcasts.
We may as well just move it together.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
That you will hear very soon. And we've got an awesome one from our road trip last year to come as well. But before we get into it, Sydney Brewery has bought Rocks Brewing.
Yeah, that was something that I think we sort of first heard about 2 or 3 weeks ago. However, they wanted to sort of get the house in order, put some branding up at Rocks Brewing. So for those that don't know, Rocks Brewing was a pretty substantial operation in Alexandria in Sydney. It went into administration last year. And unfortunately, the owners weren't able to find a means of bringing it back. Sydney Brewery has been around in one form or another for the best part of 20 years now. It was originally the Schwartz Brewery, based in the basement of the Macquarie Hotel in Sydney, became Sydney Brewery, has a brew pub in Surrey Hills and a larger brewery in Hunter Valley, is now taking this over and expanding their Lovedale Brewery. So clearly things are going well for that group, which is, and when I say group, like it's the Schwartz family group has hotels that they went into partnership with the team behind Spectacular and Gabs and a whole bunch of beer festivals and other festivals last year. So it's quite the sort of network. Presumably they're going to plug their beers into a lot of that, but also must be selling or planning to sell a lot more beer outside of that as well.
Yes, they have put a few job ads up for salespeople, so they're obviously looking at that. But if you look at the story, I mean, the media release, they're quite open about how they do have that network of hotels that they can sell their beer into, which is really obviously a big market for them, and that they've obviously been hitting their capacity for a long time. Rocks is a really substantial brewery. They're brewing their own beers and a lot of contract for others as well. So this will really sort of see them expand quite dramatically.
Yeah, well, it was a pretty sizable venue, and they've also held a number of major events there. They used to do the South Sydney Oktoberfest there and bring in other brewers from around the region like Frenchies. I think One Drop and stuff used to pour there. So interesting to see if that gives them another opportunity to do more beer festivals as well, like they do the Canberra beer and cider festivals coming up in March at one of their other hotels in Canberra. So whether they see this as an opportunity to not just brew more beer, but actually have another venue and sort of a festival events venue, will be interesting to see. I guess that's on a sort of more industry focused side of things. A story I love that you put together this week that I first heard about from Gab at Sailor's Grave over the summer. Really interesting story about Auslan Beers.
Yeah, so that's a group of members of the deaf community who have started an Instagram together, or did during lockdown rather, and that they post these reels where they review beers in Auslan, which is the sign language of Australian in the deaf community, and they've sort of realised they hit sort of more people than I think they thought they would. They put it together as a group of friends sort of looking to share it between their mates, but that all of a sudden they had international followers and a lot of local followers, people interested in what they do. So they have sort of pivoted it to a degree, and they really want to use it as a way to champion, to talk about accessibility within beer as well, kind of making spaces better for members of the deaf community. Since we ran the article, I've had a couple of emails back and forth with the team. So we're sort of hoping to see how we can talk to them more and sort of work things out. It's very early days yet, but I'm always interested in how we can make beer spaces better for people who traditionally probably haven't just been in them.
Yeah, well, they were saying that some beer fest in Melbourne recently, they had Auslan interpreted for the comedy stage.
And Melbourne Comedy Festival, which is I go to a lot. You have noticed over the years, it's the use of Auslan has really expanded. A lot of gigs and music festivals as well. So I think these things that they can sort of, once you get started and once people become more aware of them, you'd hope that they can build them into their, whether it's festivals or tap rooms to a certain degree. I mean, but there's even simple stuff they talk about, like, they hate seeing videos, reels posted on Instagram that don't have captions because they just can't be involved with that at all, and they love seeing recipes from breweries online as well, so they can
more information. Brewery stands at festivals, for example, just more information that can be provided.
So they're not missing out on an industry that they love.
This is something else that we first mentioned last week. Still seeking nominations. The Bluestone Yeast Brewery of the Month. A chance for anyone to nominate their favourite local brewery, or maybe one they visited on the road, or a small one that maybe people might not know about.
Yes, I was back at mine, which was Bridge Road Brewers, East Brunswick, because I saw another movie last night. The movie was no good, but I can't blame the brewery for that. The beers were tasting great, so that's what matters. Both in the cinema as well. They have Bridge Road Brewers beers in there, which is good to see.
So if you want to nominate your brewery, just head to craftypint.com/bluestone, BLUESTONE. I think I can still spell. And yeah, we'll be reading out the first winners in a couple of podcast time. Now, I think we mentioned last week, or maybe it was in the newsletter last week, that Craig, who does a lot of the segments and occasionally appears with us on the podcast, with his Black Flag brewing hat on the Sunshine Coast, he put together a fun little video about the beer's fifth ingredient being excise tax. Within 24 hours of it going viral last week, he was on the local 7 News in Queensland. He's since been on with Carl Stefanovic on Sunrise earlier in the week, so you should be able to find that video online. And yeah, I mean, it's been... Carl did seem to use it as a moment to plug Traveller instead rather than Black Flag, but it's been really interesting to see this momentum continuing to build. It's been happening for a while. Obviously the IBA has been putting a lot of messaging out there. A lot of small breweries have been doing it. A lot of other people have been doing it, but the momentum is gathering. It does seem to be getting picked up by the mainstream media pretty much every time someone puts their head above the parapet in a fun or interesting or just eye-catching way about what's actually happening at the minute.
Yeah, and I think while the IBA can sort of lead this from the top down, obviously some of the videos and the virality around them are showing that once breweries kind of get their hands on them and run with them in a creative way, which breweries are the ones with the marketing teams, not the IBA, like you can really cut through in a really good way. And whether that's small breweries in tiny towns that still have local media and things like that, like there's a lot of chances here to really make a lot of noise before the federal election.
And is virality an actual word, Will?
Is it? Is it not?
I'm going to look it up if it is. I've learned something. Even in my advanced years, I'll make a note to check that out later. If so, I'm going to be using it as frequently as I can.
I'll just do what I normally do and pretend it's Gen Z speak, and no one will correct me on it.
Excellent. Yeah, so yeah, worth checking out the even on Sunrise on 7 have shared it, or on the Black Flag social pages. A bit of a plug for, I guess, ourselves. I'm going to be in Sydney next week, just visiting a few breweries, recording a few podcasts, but also doing an event at Hopsters in Enmore on Wednesday night. It's our first blind tasting of 2025. One of our writers up there, Jason, suggested as a bit of a twist. We made it sort of an ale trail versus ale trail thing. So we've got 4 breweries from the Brookie Trail, 4 breweries from the Inner West Ale Trail, which Jason happens to work for. So now I'm like, it was just basically really using
he wins
something, and 4 from the South Coast Trail. So you can find details on that on the Crafty Pint events page. Hopefully see some of you there. There's discounts for Hopsters members and for our Crafty Cabal members as well. And I guess aside from that, looking ahead to our main guests, which were one of the 4 interviews we put down last year on the road to SA. Well,
yeah, so we're chatting with James McCall and Carla Naismith at Shapeshifter. James co-founded the brewery along with Kev, and Carla's the senior brewer there. It's a really great chat. People who know their beers will know them pretty well. They're quote unquote a hype brewery. I think both of them refer to themselves as that a few times. Yeah. They're doing a lot of interesting stuff with ingredients. They're always on the front foot with processes and styles and things like that. They're also making really great beers.
So playing with hops.
Yeah, exactly. And so we go through that. They also have a lot of love for traditional lagers and things like that. So really covers a full spectrum of what they do and how they built the brewery, and also a lot of other important conversations about
the issues in the still impacting the industry and that perhaps aren't being talked about as much as they were a few years ago. So that's up after the break. Before then, though, Will?
Before we get to the show, make sure you like and subscribe and review. We've been told that's very important, so please review us as well. Cheers.
Cheers.
Beer, music and food lovers, rejoice because tickets are on sale for the 10th annual High Country Hop Festival in Beechworth. Taste fresh hop harvest beers from Australia's best indie brewers, Bridge Road Brewers, Mountain Culture, Range, Wildflower, Love Shack and Kaiju, plus the High Country's famed local breweries, winemakers, craft distillers and more. See Japanese Good Time Rockers, the 5, 6, 7, 8s, in their only not yet sold out Victorian show, alongside ARIA winner Kait and folk legend Darren Hanlon. With an inspired food lineup headlined by some of Australia's most inventive chefs and iconic Box Wars workshops for kids, it's a family-friendly day out. An unmissable beer, food and music festival for all. Saturday, March 22nd in High Country Beechworth. Tickets on sale now at thehighcountryhop.com.au. Hosted by Bridge Road Brewers.
Carla and James, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
So for those who are unfortunate enough to not know much about Shapeshifter, do you want to start with telling us who Shapeshifter is as a brewery?
Well, Shapeshifter is myself and my co-founder Kev. We started we met in 2016. Shapeshifter started officially in 2019. We focus on making fun, hoppy, modern, experimental style beers. Anything else? I forgot the question, so I don't know.
No, that's good. That's good.
Well, no, but I think it'd be good to understand how you and Kev met as well.
Yep.
So you were both home brewers, and that's, I guess, you can tell us how it all came together.
Yeah, sure. So we met at TAFE here in Adelaide. We did the course under Stephen Nelson. We in October 2016, we had both been home brewers for a long time. I had decided I wanted to have a career change. So that was the first step in doing that, from graphic design. I had been a graphic designer for 16 years and it was time for something new.
You must have started at the age of 8 or something.
Well, it was pretty much out of high school, yeah. It started as work experience, and then I was there for probably a little bit too long. That kind of sparked the urge to find something new. So I decided to turn my hobby into a career, which they always suggest you do. Kev and I were classmates there, and after it all wrapped up, I still wanted to, start my own brewery. We started going our own separate ways after the end of the course, and after about 6 months, we decided this is way too hard to go alone.
Also, both of you were going to start separate breweries.
Yeah, we never intended initially to start a brewery together, but I think you'll see a lot of breweries, at least 2 people. It's pretty rare to see one person as a founder, but they are out there, but it's bloody hard work. So
whose name was Shapeshifter originally?
I think we both had lists of dozens and dozens of names. I can't remember who landed on it, but the other key metric was, is the website available? Is it easy to say?
Instagram handles
is that all available? Can someone spell it if you say it? There were just
any other good names amongst the long lists that were cast aside?
Not that I can recall. A lot of them were based on the location that we were looking at. Okay. So we did have like Bowden Brewing. We were actually
that sounds awful.
There was a few other places around Adelaide, but I'm kind of glad we ended up with one that wasn't location based. It turned out to be a good one. So after a few months of us going out alone, I think after a particularly bad day at my day job, I called Kev up and I'm like, nah, I'm done. Let's have a coffee and
so you
figure this
become
out.
mates whilst doing the course at the time.
Yeah. We were all pretty close as a class, but we did have discussions while we were there. Kev was keen to find someone with that was keen to do the brewing first and foremost, and I was looking for someone that had good business background. So we with a good yin and yang there. When we decided to pair up, it was kind of based on that, and then figuring out all the hurdles into opening any business, but brewing specifically with all the red tape and all that. It was good to have 2 heads rather than one.
And Kev's, you were graphic design beforehand. Kev was...
Kev's got a background. He was a radio DJ for a lot of his life, and then he had a string of some news agents was his previous business before that. So he's worked in large business, chain businesses, and but obviously had a love of beer and was home brewing as well. But he a lot of background in finance, business development, and things like that, sales as well. So that was a good complement. As the team grew.
Yeah, and the team grew pretty fast with Carla, one of the first hires.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what was your background with beer then, Carla, prior to joining the team here?
I have been in brewing about 6 years now. I was in hospitality when I started. I fell in love with craft beer as tends to happen to those of us who catch the bug. So I was working in a venue that was craft beer focused, and we had a little bottle shop that was attached to the pub I was working in as well. Very craft centric. We were encouraged to drink and taste product from both on tap and in the bottle shop. And it really, something in my brain was like, how, what? And I remember drinking my first 750ml bottle of Wildflower. It was amber blend. And just thinking, how is this done and how is this achieved? And I want to play in this space. So started homebrewing with a friend, and again was just having the best time. I've always been into baking and cooking and all that kind of stuff. And it felt like it ticked that box, but it also ticked the process side of my brain, so it's very left and right that you get both. And so started homebrewing, was having a great time with that, and I was like, how is this a job? Is this a thing you can do for a living? Yeah. And so started looking into it, and it turns out there was a TAFE course. At the time, the price tag on the TAFE course was a little out of my price range.
But no hope of studying in there as well.
Since then, the government actually paid for me to do that training, so that was nice. Thanks, government. But yeah, so started homebrewing, was doing that, having a great time, and then decided that I needed to figure out how to make this happen as a job. And so I left the venue I was working in and went to run a tap room for a brewery. And I used to just turn up on brew days and pester the brew team to let me do things. So I would weigh out hop additions and squeegee the floor, but in that process kind of absorbed things via osmosis and would take that home to the home brew and, apply it on my own scale, and was just having a great time. So then in line with that, that year we went to Beer and Barbecue Festival, South Australian favourite, and I had a few beers one day. Surprise, surprise. And I met...
Why else would you be there?
Yeah, exactly. And I met Aggie, who was at the time the head brewer of Spark, which is how my career kind of really got its first foothold. So Aggie and I were having a beer and a chat. I was a fan of what she was doing, and she offered me a job on the spot. So
and remembered the next day
at the festival.
Wow.
And actually, if I'm honest, she gave me a business card and I put it in my top pocket, and it wasn't until I found the business card in my pocket I was like, oh right, okay, yep, good, follow that up. So yeah, got in touch with Aggie, and she was in a position where she really needed some help, and yeah, so I started with her 2 weeks later, and away we went.
I think that's where we first met, wasn't it? In the world's smallest brewery.
I think it was 20 square meters or something like that. Yeah. The pink floor. That was.
But making a lot of different beers though.
Yeah. It was a really great place to start because the remit of what we were doing was so broad, and that paired with Aggie's background, she was a great first head brewer to have as a mentor. She was really good. But yeah, I only got to work with her for a relatively short period of time before she went up the hill to Mismatch. And then I basically ran that site for 18 months on my own with probably a year's worth of experience at that point. So that was pretty challenging. Talk about deep end. Yeah. But we got there. Nothing went super wrong. So... and from there, I went down to work with Tom at Loophole on the Limestone Coast. What an angel of a man.
Oh,
and
yeah. Would have been a very different focus and brewery, though, than...
So different, and it was absolutely the right next move. Like Tom with his world of experience.
Yeah, so for listeners, his background was at Stone and Wood for a long time. Very production driven, but I guess Loophole is making all kinds of interesting beers, including
as a Kevin Parker impersonator.
Yeah, could absolutely. I think they're from Kevin Parker's WA, but they could be brothers. But at the time, Tom had just won the trophy, but we won't talk about the trophy, but the trophy for the Astrals. And so for me, that was like the perfect next step to go and learn more and grow more. And for those who don't know, the Loophole site is actually situated on a winery. And Tom plays with lots of co-ferments with grapes and all that space. He even malted his own barley for a little while, he grew it himself and then malted it locally. and then made a lovely Keller Pils with it. It was just like, he and I both have environmental science background. It was a really good next step. That and the winery money was very helpful in that site was very well set up. So
And you made an amazing juicy IPA.
I did, yeah. So James McCall actually taught me how to brew hazies. We did a collaboration while I was still at the previous brewery. And so I took that knowledge with me down to Loophole and
recipe.
I think we used different hops.
Completely different. Yeah.
But yeah, that beer was an absolute belter. I was really pleased with how that came out, and it was really lovely for Tom to trust me enough after such a short period of time and just be like, "Go for it, mate. Have fun." But with that site came a Cody canning line, came double fermenters, came production scale facility, which was very different to what I had brewed on at Spark. And so it was the perfect next step, along with having a mentor like Tom, who, taught me how to barrel beers, taught me how to operate a canning line, taught me how to, manage production. Make mead. Yeah. This is how we filter. It was really the perfect next step. Meanwhile, I was still supporting my friend at the time, James.
Drinking lots of Shapeshifter beer.
We did used to swap quite a few because you were still contract brewing at that time.
Yeah, as we were building the site here, we were contract brewing mainly at Big Shed. Had one turn at Little Bang, which is where Nordic was born. Carla was always in the background helping with Shapeshifter as it was kind of getting its physical form here. So yeah, she might not have been on the team officially at the time, but she was definitely one of the OGs. So.
You also had one of my best friends running the venue, Namisha.
That's right. Yep.
Shout out. And so it meant that I was kind of supporting Mish in her role and supporting my friend James at, getting the brewery up and running and checking in with him. Have you had a breakdown yet? Are you okay? Do you need anything?
Just one this week so far.
Yeah. So
very incestuous, but in a good way.
Yeah, I think that's what's great about the community, though, isn't it? That we all look out for one another and check in on one another and all that stuff. So that was definitely happening at that time while I was growing my skills and experience down at Loophole as well. And then it became apparent that another set of hands was required here, somebody with maybe a little bit of production experience that I'd gained down at Loophole. And so it kind of just was the right fit. It's 8 minutes from the house I bought a few years ago.
Rather than, 3.5 hours?
3.5 hour drive to Loophole. So, the 8 minute commute really, and being surrounded by my friends. Mish was still here at the time and I had James, and so it made sense. So came home and got cracking. And here we are 3 years later.
And that was how long after you put the brewery in here? It was pretty soon after, wasn't it?
2 months.
Pretty soon, yeah.
Not even a month.
Yeah, we obviously built the brewery here in 7-month build. But, in the last few months of that, we already started filling the tanks. And then when we opened in October 2021, yes, it was, hit the ground running, and it kind of hasn't really stopped for us. And it was great to be able to offer that spot to Carla very, very soon after we opened, because we needed it. We needed someone that could come in and just, grab the steering wheel and keep it going. And, as we go along, she's been a great part of the team. So
And why Findon? Like, what was the appeal of this area, or just that there's industrial and warehouses?
Did I mention 8 minutes from home?
It's 12 minutes from my house.
Isn't everything 15 minutes or less?
Yeah.
We are the 20-minute city. But no, I mean, Findon, anywhere in the west of Adelaide. I've grown up in the west, and there are already some great breweries and brew pubs here. The Weedy and Big Shed and Pirate Life set up down in Port Adelaide, and you got Bright Star and Bowden. So it's turning into a great little spot. But for me, just looking at a map of Adelaide, 4 years ago when we were kind of looking at the space, just could drop a pin there and say, oh, there's a bit of space in there, let's have a look. This warehouse came up around the same time as a little bit of a, we were fighting with CrossFit gyms at the time. And any warehouse in Adelaide that was around 500 square meters, it was turning into a craft brewery or a CrossFit gym. And then COVID hit, and a lot of the gyms got shut down. And this place was actually a gym before we took over. But yeah, it came up, and it was the right size, and it was on a relatively main road and on the inner west here in Adelaide, and yeah, we just took it. So it's been a great spot for us to settle down in.
Carly, you talked about, you know, your friendship with Mish earlier, and like, I know it is a pretty tight-knit community in South Australia, and you've been pretty involved with Pink Boots. Like how have you sort of found that community and being a big part of it for the last 6 years?
The craft beer community itself is a very special place. I'd lead with that. I've met some of the best humans, and I'm now lucky enough to call them some of my best friends. It's such a, on the whole, if I'm looking for the positives, it's such a fulfilling, lovely, welcoming space. Unfortunately, I think it's not always for women. I think, and that doesn't mention anyone else in the spectrum of humans, because I'm sure there's a whole world of challenges for others who I can't speak for. But yeah, I think we've still got a long way to go in making the industry completely inclusive and a safe space for all. I think I was lucky enough to be given opportunities fairly early on in my career, maybe sometimes more because of my gender than it should have been, but it's a tough conversation to have because I feel like I don't want to talk about the fact that I'm a female brewer. I want to talk about the fact that I'm a brewer and a good brewer. But I also feel like we still need to have these conversations as well, because it's not always safe. There's definitely been times at festivals and things where I'm aware of, you know, needing to find a girlfriend because I don't feel particularly comfortable, or needing to remove myself from a situation. And likewise, I think in a professional capacity, I've had instances where my capabilities been questioned, or, you know, or you were only given that opportunity because you're a woman. And sometimes that may be true, but also I think we need to make this space as well. So how do we go about making these changes without giving these opportunities to women? So I was lucky enough to judge the Australian International Beer Awards this year on a Pink Boots scholarship, which was amazing. I'm so thankful. It was really lovely to have a seat at the table, and I learnt so much. And I think I was Pink Boots state coordinator for several years, which was amazing. Pink Boots, for anyone who doesn't know, is about women in brewing, and or not just brewing, but any kind of fermentation and distilling. So yeah, that was great. That was kind of during COVID times as well, so it was kind of difficult to organise catch-ups.
But that kind of community is arguably more important than ever.
Absolutely.
It was at that point as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, like earlier we met Courtney, who's someone we interviewed before.
Yes.
Like you, I know she's worked at the bar and things like that, but you've managed to pull her into brewing as well. Like, that must be great. Yeah, so in line with the skills and experience that I've gained in the last 6 years, I've now been able to take on the mentor role for others, which is really lovely. So I've trained 2 female brewers under me now. One of them isn't in the industry anymore, because it is really hard work. Like, let's not beat around the bush. Being a brewer is tough, but it's, for me, really, really worthwhile. And so Court has been with us for just over a year now, and she seems to be really enjoying it. She's come a long way in the last 12 months, and I'm super proud of her. So yeah, we're basically on the floor, other than you, Jimmy, it's just me and Court. We joked the other day, we were like, we're just 2 girls listening to Missy Higgins and making beer. And we all had a good chuckle at that. So.
I'll often walk into the brewery in the morning and it will be like TLC will be playing, or it'll be like all the, and I was like, that's what having a team like this is. I'm here for it.
What did I put on the other day? Killing Heidi. You were singing along.
That's great.
That's real banger stuff.
Yeah.
You mentioned like the events, event space, and potentially not feeling safe all the time, especially at bigger events. It felt to me like a few years ago there was a lot more discussion around this. A lot of the discussion was kicked off in the States initially, but we ran some articles over here. It felt like there was real progress being made. It feels like maybe that's been pushed to one side, maybe because of the other challenges faced by the industry. How do you feel progress has been on that front in terms of discussions around inclusivity or creating safer spaces?
Yeah, I don't know that we've come as far as we need to, unfortunately. It's hard though, because sometimes I feel like the more we have the conversation, the more people push back as well, which is kind of upsetting.
We heard that some of the articles we published and what we were covering. It's like, that's not that's not the
Yeah,
response.
you're completely
not the
missing the
response.
point. Yeah. If we are coming to you saying we don't feel safe in this space, we would hope that you would say, how do we go about making this better for you? Instead of arguing with us about our experience. It's a real shame.
What would you like to see, to make things better?
I would like to move through that space and not have it assumed that I work in sales. No, what would I like? I would like women of all ages, skill levels from the whole industry to feel safe in that space. And by safe, I mean, I don't want you to make comment on what I'm wearing or how I look or, I don't know. It's so hard. I feel like in this day and age, I mean, sorry to be dark, but what are we up to? 86 women who've died at the hands of, men so far in Australia this year. So it might be a broader issue. It might just not be down to the craft beer industry to fix the world's problems. But I think, I think awareness is the first step. I think, unfortunately, continuing to have the conversations. And maybe if you're a man in the space, call people out when you see inappropriate behaviour, and I think support your female colleagues and friends in the industry as well. Ask them how they're going. If you're at a festival with them, check in. How's your day? You good? You're feeling safe? I'm here if you need me. Come and tap me on the shoulder if someone's being a creep. That kind of energy. I think that's probably a good place to start, at least. Yeah.
Well, I think the craft beer industry in many ways likes to put itself forward as being progressive. And,
yes.
So...
Or at least community focused.
Yeah.
And so it is important for
and
us to be better than the rest of society.
I think it is on so many levels. Like, we have conversations about beer people are good people. We said it just before. And on the whole, they are. But I think generally people tend to get a little bit defensive when maybe you point at behaviour that's happening that they don't, and then defensiveness, and then everybody doesn't feel like they're being heard, and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, generally craft people are good people, left-leaning, community focused. I don't argue with any of that, but I think we've still got room to grow and do better in those spaces. So
fantastic. Thanks, guys. Let's take a quick break and be right back.
We're back with Hendo, founder of Rockstar Brewer Academy. Now, unlike formal brewing training like you'd find at a TAFE, Rockstar Brewer Academy offers access, I guess, to a practical coaching program and a community that will help you brew better beer. Now, Hendo, I wanted to talk about you a little more. I've mentioned your background a few times, but and I have to say, having come from the world of Gabs myself, I will always remember you from Brew Cult and Milk and Two Sugars. What an amazing beer that was. But tell me a bit more about your background, your career. Give me the life story in a nutshell.
I've been a professional brewer for 15 or 16 years now. One of the things that I learnt really quickly or early on in my career is just I loved brewing and being on the floor, and I loved the learning experience of, just trying to make my beer better and that sort of thing. So, I started out at Prickly Moses down in the Otways, and then became head brewer at Southern Bay Brewing in Geelong before I went on that wild ride, which was starting Brew Cult in 2013. That finished up in during that time, brewing out at Cavalier in the western suburbs of Melbourne. Then moved all the production down to Kaiju in Dandy South, and then when that ended in 2017. I went and spent a year on the production floor at Stone and Wood, so big brewery doing tens of millions of litres a year, before starting the Rockstar Brewer Academy. So it's a very eclectic brewing career, but the really good thing is that I've seen breweries of all different shapes and sizes and being able to adapt quickly.
Tell me, Hendo, your background and that experience, I guess, what inspired you then to start Rockstar Brewer Academy? What were the kind of key things that you saw in your career that you thought there's a problem there to be solved that I can help with?
The problem that I found was that it was really difficult and really challenging to get access to reliable brewing technical information. And also on top of that, now I'm pro getting a formal brewing education, absolutely. But even if you get a professional, like a formal brewing education, as a professional brewer, that still doesn't give you practical information that you can go and directly install systems in your brewery. And so I wanted to start something where, if you are experiencing certain issues, and there are some very common issues that a lot of breweries do experience, that you can just go and get that information, get a system, get the worksheets or templates, and just go and install it in your brewery, and it's done. And then you move on to the next thing that you want to go and install in your brewery that will take your brewery to the next level.
Well, mate, now with your Rockstar Brewer Academy hat on, and thinking back to young Steve, young little Hendo back in the day, just starting out, what would be the one most important lesson you would have loved to have been able to tell yourself back then?
Oh, wow. Okay. So
I'm really going deep here, Hendo. This is it.
yeah, no, I don't. It's a great question. So I think that the number one thing is that if you want to make your beer better, you need to define what better or good is. And so, a question that I ask a lot of brewers or people who are thinking of joining the Rockstar Brewer Academy is, we'll talk about a particular beer. Let's just call it, pale ale, just an example, right? And we'll talk about the pale ale, and I'll say, well, you make lots of batches of your pale ale because it's one of the beers you brew most frequently. How do you know you've made a good batch versus a not so good batch? And typically the answer is, I'll just know, or it'll smell and taste great. But those things are very broad and generalistic and aren't a clear definition of quality. And so we have a system at the Rockstar Brewer Academy that we call the product specification. And it basically gets the brewer to get out of Beersmith or Brewfather and into a place where you can actually write down what the beer is, which is basically what is the raw materials in it, and doing so in a way that's irrespective of the batch size or the equipment that it's brewed on. Documenting in detail the process, so things like temperatures and times and pressures and go, no go tests and all that sort of thing. And then thirdly, and the most important thing, is defining beer quality. And so how we define beer quality at the Rockstar Brewer Academy is through two lenses. They're called fit for use and true to brand. Fit for use is anything you can measure with an instrument that makes a number, right? So gravity, pH, temperature, carbonation, bitterness, color, haze, all that sort of stuff. They all make a number. That's fit for use. But hitting the numbers doesn't tell you the complete story about a good quality beer. So, for example, you can hit the numbers and have a diacetyl bomb, right?
Yeah, wow. Yep.
And so that's where true to brand comes in. And so, one of the things you do in Beer Quality Bootcamp in your first 60 days is you write a true to brand description, or learn the process of writing a sensory description, which is basically, what's this beer supposed to look like? What does it smell like? What does it taste like? And what does it feel like? And all of a sudden, those two things together gives you a very clear objective as to what a great batch of beer is supposed to look like. Then you got something to aim for.
You're exactly right. It's like define what you want first, and then you'll know when you've got it. Brewers, you can start your journey to brewing better beer today. Just head to rockstarbrewer.com/calibration. Book in a 15-minute chat with Hendo. Figure out if you're a good fit. Not a sales call, and take it from there. Thank you again, Hendo. We'll see you again soon.
Cheers, Greg.
And welcome back. James, I'd love to talk a bit more, Carla, about the beers. Like, you focus on, James mentioned earlier, modern craft beer. Like, I'm always interested, I guess, in breweries that are really leading the way on styles and innovation and new hops and things like that. Like, what sort of drives you to do? Is that what you were making as a home brewer, or you just felt like when you envisioned Shapeshifter with Kev that this would be the space you play in?
Yeah, absolutely both. Like, the beers that I first fell in love with in craft beer, apart from things like Feral Hop Hog and that back in the day in Australia, were some international breweries. My wife's from Canada. We'd go back to Toronto a lot. Bellwoods would always be on the cards. I've stopped into Bellwoods a bunch of times. Love Cloudwater from Manchester in the UK. Those kind of breweries were definitely the inspiration point for starting Shapeshifter. At the time, those styles were brewed sporadically or not at all. So we kind of set up Shapeshifter to be that brewery that could make, those fresh hazies and oat creams and similar styles for Adelaide and Australia. So that's that was the inspiration for us setting up Shapeshifter at the time. There were a few other breweries that started around the same time around the country, and I think now you've seen, the tidal wave that it was hazies at the time. We were fortunate enough to be one of the first ones in Adelaide to start brewing those styles.
I think you got a reputation beyond Adelaide as well, even before you had this place, just when you were still contract brewing for especially oat cream IPAs. I think if you to ask sort of beer nerds around the country, what do you think of Shapeshifter? You're like, oh, they make great oat cream IPAs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Little Gold Star, we brewed the first oat cream in Adelaide. Do remember we then caught up at a local brewer catch up. It was an IBA meeting or something like that, and everyone was teasing me at the time. What are you making that hazy bullshit for? And then look at us now. Well, look at them. They're making it too. So there you go. I think that's the thing when we're always excited to try new styles of beer and new hop products or new yeast strains, and that's what keeps us going here at Shapeshifter. And sometimes you get that, people go, what are you making that for, kind of thing. But it always comes from finding the next delicious beer that we can make, or a new technique or style that we want to try, or talking to friends in the industry near and far, and seeing what they're making and trying to make it local, because fresh is always best, and if you can make those styles locally for local beer drinkers, then that's always a good thing.
Yeah. And what sort of styles are really interesting you in 2024, 2025? What have you been looking at the most?
I mean, we're seeing trends towards a lot of bright beer at the moment. We're going back to West Coasts, but with a bit of a modern twist, taking out the spec malt, all Pilsner base, but like bright, hoppy, crisp. That's something us as a brew team are definitely loving. Lager is life. As always.
That's what we've been saying.
Yeah. I mean, I just brought it up at the team meeting on Monday. For 4 weeks in a row now, our Hellas Lager is the top seller at the tap room 4 weeks straight. We haven't seen that previously.
And is that the same lager that the Findon lager?
Yeah, Findon's finest. Yeah,
there you go. So
which is tongue in cheek, of course. Yeah. It's the best Hellas lager made in Findon. But I mean, up until for a long time, at least in 2024 and previous, we'd see things like Party Shirt, our session hazy, be a big seller. Obviously, at a tap room, you're seeing the lower ABV styles move more volume, but we kind of love to see Findon's going so hard because we drink a ton of it. And yeah, so things like cold IPAs, West Coast IPAs, West Coast Pilsners, those are the things that when we're thinking of doing limiteds now outside of our regular hazy IPA or oat cream releases, are the styles that we're definitely leaning towards. And I think the market as a whole, and the warmer months as well, we're seeing a lot of bright beers, a lot more refreshing through spring and summer. So yeah, that's what we're loving to make at the moment.
And Carla, like, are there sort of Shapeshifter beers you've sort of put your stamp on really and sort of said, no, we have to make this, or you're just sort of stoked lagers are back at the moment? But like, where do you sort of see it? To James is James one of the brewery owners who can take his hands off the wheel a little bit?
Yeah, I think we share the wheel fairly well.
Absolutely. I mean,
and not pulling in opposite directions.
I mean, Complex Compounds definitely was one that I think you drew.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, we did a collab with the guys from Loophole. We did a thiolized, we called it Farmhouse Ale. It was basically a French saison. But it was really fun. We used Phantasm and had a really good time. And I don't know that anyone in the broader public understood what it was that I was trying to achieve, but I knew what I was trying to achieve. And I think it was a delicious little beer. We play in all sorts of different spaces. I mean, I love Findon's too. It's our Hellas Lager. It's one of my favourites, and particularly since I brought home a Luca tap from the Czech Republic.
In your back pocket.
Yeah, it was like my most
Did you
prized...
tell James it was going to be installed? Snuck in on a weekend.
Yeah, I just came home and plugged it in.
Did you tell the venue that when you were ripping it off the wall?
Don't worry, I got an invoice for it. I knew it.
And then we squabbled over the tote bag that it came in as well.
Oh, that's fine.
So obviously, big fan of a lager. I also am really enjoying bright hoppy beers. I feel like that's the next, like at least for me, the next wave is we're coming back to bright beers, crispy, all that kind of stuff. But I think we're going to take some of the things that we learnt from brewing hazies, big chewy oat creams, all that sort of stuff, and apply some of those principles to the way we're now brewing these bright beers. So
you think about some of those beers we tried at the event we were at the
amazing,
night,
yeah,
and they're bright and they are crispy, but they're fucking juicy as hell.
crunchy,
tropical layers on there.
Yeah, that
great.
Bract 106. Yeah, that was a good time. Yeah. I'm gonna actually, maybe I'll even go and drink one this weekend. So yeah, and we were talking the other night at that event about dip hopping and those sorts of practices as well, and they were things that we were applying to the brewing of these oak creams and hazy IPAs, and we're now using those same techniques to produce these bright, delicious beers. So yeah, I think we've learned something from this era, and now we're moving into this era, and it'll be interesting to see, the progression from there.
What comes next?
Yeah.
You mentioned limiters before, James. You were like one of the breweries, especially, especially in SA, that was putting out a lot of limited releases. We've noticed, it's one of the things we've been writing about this week, a lot of breweries that pull back in the limited release programs, I guess with the wider economic situation. Is that something that you've had to do as well?
We've always made space in the calendar for limiteds. I think, when we started, we actually didn't have a core range, and, that was based on the back of guys like Cloudwaters. It was just new limiteds every single week. And we were doing the same thing. Kind of as you grow as a brewery and having to, meet the market in some aspects, there's always going to be people. We were having issues with people coming in, oh, can I get the hazy IPA? And you'd be like, which one?
There's four.
But there's the one with the blue label. Which one? But people will love a beer and then they'll want it again. And so, you see that. So then we have evolved, and we do have our core range now that is available all the time. But us as a brewery, our ethos was always, we were born out of limited releases. So always at least 2 a month we're still doing. It has been pared back probably from a couple of years ago.
But still pulling through.
Oh, they're the fastest selling beers that we make, absolutely. And keeps us on our toes as a brew team. We love being able to, if it's a style like we were saying before, maybe an emerging style coming out of the States or somewhere else, we love, let's do the research, let's write this recipe, let's brew it on the equipment that we've got here using the techniques that we know. Let's see how it turns out. And luckily they've all turned out pretty well. But that's what we like. So the core range are always there in the background humming along. It's good for the wider distribution that we need as growth for a business. But I think people that are fans of Shapeshifter are always there waiting for the next limited.
Yeah. So I suppose if anyone in SA was going to be the exception to prove the rule on the limited release front, it's probably going to be you guys.
We try.
Yeah, and you're talking about the core range before. You did refresh the core range and the look of the brewery. What was behind that? And obviously taking in that your background's in graphic design well, so I imagine it was quite a process.
Scratching that itch again.
Well, I mean, I didn't actually do the rebrand.
Okay.
So, it's one of those things. It's like when you kind of live with it, as far as having to design your own logo and things like that, I just couldn't do it. I do a lot of stuff around the business, but I mean, the rebrand came about kind of seeing that, as we grew as a business, the touch points that people would come across of Shapeshifter, from a coaster to a poster, or from the merch or to the beer labels, they were fine on their own, but kind of when I put them together, I wasn't really liking how they're all a bit like non-cohesive. So I actually walked into one of our favorite pizza shops here in Adelaide, One Sneaky Cheetah, and their branding, their branding, it was killer. And I was just in there and I'm like, whoever did this, I want to talk to those guys. So I did a bit of research. It's a company called Voice here in Adelaide. And they do a ton of beverage labels, wine, spirits. They hadn't done a ton of beer, which I kind of liked because all their ideas for beer are probably still fresh. So we worked with them for about 12 months in the background to refresh our brand. And what I like about it now is they've kind of taken where we were and just kind of iterated off that. So they've just refreshed the look of the wolf logo and used our name Shapeshifter and used it for some taglines. They really cleared out our position in the market for us and the tone of voice that we like to use, and the way that people now can see our beers in the cans, they can more easily identify something that's core range, something that's limited, something that's seasonal. So it's just a fun little project that now is kind of set us up for hopefully our next phase of growth. Yeah.
Aside from the limiters, you quite quickly in the early days, the Shapeshifter started selling beer quite widely across Australia. We've seen a lot of breweries pull back, more locally focused. Is that something you've had to do over the last couple of years as well, or is there still enough interest in what you're doing around the country, especially from specialist bottle shops, whatever, they're still clamoring for your beers?
We've found that a ton of our beer goes interstate. We do have our local retailers here, but I think one of the things with us being limited releases, we've got fans around Australia who look forward to the next one. So we move a lot of volume in like West Australia, Queensland and Victoria are our biggest markets at the moment. We've got some great distributors through there.
Get with the program, New South Wales.
Well, we're talking to New South Wales, and our Vic distributors do send some down there. But we're still such small volume that all the distributors are always fighting to get the last kegs and the last packs to go to them. But it's great because we love to see people all around Australia enjoying the beer. I think locally is more so the consistency of our core range and being able to find them in a couple hundred bottle shops now, which is amazing to see. We've still got our fans here that still come in for the limiteds, but I think there's that rarity aspect that you see in craft beer that someone that might like Shapeshifter in Adelaide can pop down to the tap room 4 days a week and grab it, but when you see it in a bottle shop in Canberra or Perth, then it might be a little bit more special for our interstate fans.
I love getting photos from my brewer colleagues all across the country being like, I found this here, it's tasting really good. It's such a treat. It's like they found an Easter egg I left for them.
And I think that's the key thing to remember is there's still people out there still hunting, still looking for new and interesting things. I guess the overarching message over the last couple of years with, I guess, so many challenges to the industry has been everything's going smaller or going more local or whatever, but there's still all this other positive and exciting stuff happening. It's just maybe not being the main focus of the noise out there. So
people love the sense of excitement as well, I think, and when you're using new ingredients and things like that, there's a huge consumer base, I think, that's super educated now, and they might not know what a Phantasm farmhouse is, but they want a stylized IPA and that kind of thing. They're out there.
They have the Phantasm farmhouse and still don't know what it is.
I think we got tagged in the early days as a hype brewery, and we're not afraid to say that we were. But I think what's happened now is, as you said, consumers are more educated now. They can pick a fresh beer or a stale beer or a good beer from a bad beer, and I think what we've really done as a brewery is become more consistent, and we're still releasing those limited releases, which are exciting, but hopefully people will also realize that we're continuously trying to improve, make the best beer we can every week, and those limited releases, still being experimental, are still going to be delicious and great beers to drink.
And we've talked about innovation and using new ingredients a few times today. Uber nerdy question for each of you: is there a new product that's come on the market in the last couple of years that you've really loved, whether it's a new type of advanced hop product or something? Is there something that you've gone, I just want to use this in every beer I can, like it's such an amazing thing?
And Carly, you can't say Lucas side pause. They've been around for a while.
No. You go first.
Oh, well, okay. We have played around with a ton. I mean, we love seeing the new independent hop growers coming up and selling direct. I think that's fantastic. I think it's something great for the hop growing industry, but it means that we get access to some amazing hops that they're the data nerds as well. They'll tell us the hour that it was picked, what direction the sun was shining that day, and it's amazing. So we're fortunate to get some great hops from New Zealand specifically. But I mean, the first thing that came to mind, I don't remember when Eclipse came out from HBA, but I mean, that quickly jumped up the ranks as one of my favorite hops. It's not sexy like a hop key for any kind of liquid jazzy stuff, which they're all good, but for me, as soon as that hop came out, I was like, West Coast IPA, let's do it. And it's one of the first beers we released under the new branding, a big bright West Coast full of Eclipse hops, and I just love that hop. So yeah, I love the new hop varieties that are coming out, and that one just shines for me.
And I'm intrigued just to know where this hop field is, where the sun shines from different directions.
You know what I mean.
Yeah, no, the understanding.
No, I'm sure they've got mirrors in Clayton hops or something like that. They'll be working it out.
Very on brand. I'd probably say hot products as well. It means we're doing.
You're aligned.
Yeah, good. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
I have loved playing with liquid hop products, and not one in particular. I mean, we all got into Keef for a minute there, and we're still very into it. But it's nice to now see Yakima and stuff coming through from that direction as well. Because obviously the broader the gamut is, the more we've got to play with, which is always fun for us. I love the increased efficiency that we get from those products. I love playing with them in different ways, like talking to my colleagues across the country, friends, whatever. Both.
Colleagues.
Yeah. The ways we're utilising it, it's all different. Everybody's got their own take on what works best based in their system. I don't know, I find that sharing of knowledge in line with all of these new products really fun as well. So yeah, Keef was great. We had some great fun with Spectrum, that was probably more than 12 months ago now that I think about it. But
Incognito's been a big part of our brewery.
Yeah, we've been using that for a long time. Yeah, so I think liquid hops are fun. Yeah. And the more beer you get out of the tank, the better, right? Like, that's what we're here for. More beer.
And looking to the future, like, what's next for Shapeshifter? Is there anything you're really keen to explore or do, or what's next?
There's a few things on the calendar that we probably can't mention yet. Nothing too groundbreaking, but yeah, I mean, a few collabs with friends that we've been talking with for a while, or new collabs with ones we've done before. Fro labs with friends. Absolutely.
That sounds like a liquid hop product.
Yeah.
Maybe more yeast.
Yeah. What else? It's a couple festivals on the horizon. Hopefully they'll be fun and they'll go ahead after some setbacks that we've had for the last few years. What else? I mean, the constant, innovation that we try and bring here at Shapeshifter will always be happening as well. But yeah, it's going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to it because I really feel like we're finally maybe hitting that next gear as far as the kind of setbacks or the holding pattern we've been in as an industry, or at least if I can speak for ourselves, we've been lucky enough that we haven't really fallen back as far as production or anything like that. We've just been holding steady, just like holding on, and then hoping that I reckon it's coming up that we'll be finally able to take that next step. And so all that fun stuff as well, but hopefully some growth and maybe some expansion for Shapeshifter. Fingers crossed, we'll see it happen.
Expansion here or other tap rooms? Like,
well,
what are you looking at?
Either or. I think there's room for potentially another space or a bigger space or improving what we have here. There's a lot of things that are kind of on the table, but what we do know is that at the moment we're emptying a tank and filling it the next day. So we're going to have to go up or sideways or out or something to try and keep going. But hopefully we can do that with some confidence. I think we've just held steady for now, just knowing where we're at and the industry at large. But fingers crossed that I'd like to see us go to that next phase. It's really exciting.
And for yourself, Carla?
Continuous improvement. It's the little 1%ers. I just want to keep pushing and making the beer better and more consistent. I want to keep investing in my team and making them better, and feel fulfilled and happy at work, make great beer. I don't know, innovation's great, I'm here for that, but also how good we get to do a job that we love and work with people we like, and I don't know, I feel very privileged most days. So
James and Carla, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Hey sales reps, have you ever thought about how much time you spend on admin, entering orders that come in over email, SMS, phone, or even Instagram messages? Could that time be better spent on the road, meeting new customers, running tastings, and building the brand? That's what it's all about, right? Well, that's where Phobo can help. Developed by people who are far smarter than I am, Phobo have created an AI platform that can read and process all of your customer orders instantaneously, no matter how they come in. Maybe Bill's Bottle Shop have sent you a text message saying, "Same as last week, mate." Or Ted's Tavern with an email, "Give me a keg of pale." No matter how casual the message, Phobo's AI has been taught to speak the language of beer ordering. Give the team at Phobo a call and let them help you get back to what you do best, meeting new customers and looking after your existing ones. Visit Phobo, that's foboh.com.au/crafty-pint and complete the brief form to find out more.
The Crafty Pint podcast is produced and edited by Matt Hoffman. You can get all your beer-related news and reviews on the Crafty Pint website, craftypint.com, and can stay up to date on future podcast episodes via our socials.
We wouldn't be able to produce the podcast or the website, events or festivals we run without the support of the beer industry, whether that's suppliers, bars, breweries or bottle shops. If you'd like to support the show or partner with the Crafty Pint in other ways, please reach out to Craig via the details in the show notes.
And if you're a beer lover who'd like to support what we do, you can join our exclusive club for beer lovers, the Crafty Cabal. Visit craftykabal.com for more.
And until next time, drink good beer.